Welcome to Fandom Post Radio. Hey, I'm Kestrel. If I'm hosting an episode, it probably means it's a ranking episode, and that's exactly what this is. And we're ranking studios. Gotta have our friend DJ for every ranking episode.
Yo, I'm the other rank guy.
The other rank guy, and yet, guess who actually volunteered to do this episode? It was Cain. Hello, Cain.
Hi.
Amazing.
Yeah,
The unranked guy.
I don't know what I was thinking.
Immediately,
I spent time doing research on this and everything, and man, I did my darndest. So we will see how it turns out.
I mean, the good thing about studios is that, like, I don't know, 50 studios make all the anime that's ever existed. So, like, whatever you pick, it's probably going to be a decent list.
That definitely made it easier, because I was like, oh, I don't want to pick ones that everyone else would pick, but then I realized that there's only so many of them.
Exactly. And we have someone I did not fit into the schedule, so we'll see how that works. It's Darius.
Hello, how y'all doing?
Sup? Yeah, so we've got our lists, our top 10s we're going to rank. We're going to talk about 10 through 6 a little bit quicker, and then spend some more time on 5 through 1, go round robin style. We're going to mention the series or movies or whatever anime each of those studios made that earned them place on our lists. And we're just going to talk about what the studio means in our eyes in whatever form that takes. In between those, we got a bunch of lists from other people, hopefully that are listening to this episode. So we're going to read those off. Some of them are full, like, top 5, some top 3s, some just 1 or 2. But we will include all those, and then we will aggregate most of them together. Anyone who gave at least a top 3 will aggregate together. And then we'll aggregate our 4 top 10s together and see what shakes out of that. So yeah, 10 through 6s, I will start that off. And I guess I should mention, like, studios, they don't necessarily mean as much as people give them credit for in every situation. It's different by studio. Some of them are like, people on staff, distinctive style, try to, like, make everything be able to be worked on by the same people. Other studios, they have so many sub-studios, they make different things at the same time, so the same people aren't, collaborating on any of the same projects, even though it's by the same studio technically. They hire mostly freelancers, outsource a bunch of stuff. So depending on the situation, doesn't necessarily mean that much, but we'll talk about probably some of those factors and how we factor them into our ranking. So yeah, just wanted to get that little caveat out of the way.
Yeah, I didn't realize that until I did my research, that so many of these are like, Studio A, but also Studio A, sub letter, sub number 1, sub number 2, sub number 3.
Yeah, the really big ones that are like, how can one studio really be churning out that much? Well, it's because they're not. They have a bunch of mini studios within them. So yeah, that's a thing. But we will we'll discuss that as we go on, and just wanted to let you know that yes, I'm aware that a studio is not like a director. It does not necessarily mean that it's a singular vision or anything like that. So anyway, my number 10 is Bones. Their works include both Full Metal Alchemist series and all 3 seasons of Mob Psycho 100. Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is, of course, my favorite anime of all time. The animation production was only part of the reason behind that, but it was certainly an important one. And Bones has regularly produced some of the most impressive pieces of animation out of anyone. And a lot of that is thanks to, some of the top animators that they use, including Yutaka Nakamura, who's probably the greatest animator in the business. And he's actually full-time staff at Bones, which is, again, a rare thing. So yeah. My number 9 is MAPPA. Their works include Attack on Titan, the final season, Jujutsu Kaisen, Evil Rising, and Chainsaw Man. They spent quite a few years producing solid work, but they were rarely considered like a marquee studio. But they've been conquering the anime industry since like 2020. They've just had an ever-increasing quantity of the biggest titles out there, including several picked up from other studios, which I'll get to in a minute. And they've really been just delivering their best work in the process. My number 8 is Toei Animation. Their works include One Piece, Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, and Slam Dunk. Toei's history goes back 75 years, which is longer than any other anime studio, and several decades of that, they've been adapting some of the most iconic Weekly Shonen Jump manga into a long-running TV series. And they've certainly had their ups and downs throughout all the years, and, they pump out an insane quantity, so it makes sense. But their classics definitely stand the test of time. And, despite running weekly for over 1,000 episodes with no breaks, One Piece somehow looks better than it ever has right now. And really, it regularly gives us the best animation of any series in a given season. So yeah, pretty remarkable. My number 7 is Wit Studio. Their works include Attack on Titans through Season 3, Part 2, the first season of Vinland Saga, and Spy Family. Like I mentioned, they've dropped a lot of their best series, and they usually end up in MAPPA's slightly less capable hands. But Wit's dedication to quality is a huge part of what made those series so exceptional in the first place, to the point that they rarely work on more than one property simultaneously. That shows greatly in the end product and means, while we might not get to see some of our favorite series at that same peak of quality after they leave Wit's hands, we do get to see a greater variety of titles that, they give that level of care. So, yeah, spread the love. And my number 6 is Production IG. Their works include every season of Haikyuu, all Ghost in the Shell anime, the 2 seasons of Standalone Complex being my favorite by far, Usagi Drop, and Moribito.
IGPX.
And IGPX, that's correct. And yeah, Wit Studio formed as a spin-off of IG. And, Wit definitely established their own identity and their own stylistic path. But their standard for quality was definitely inherited from their parent. I guess, not their parent technically, their progenitor, I guess. Because, IG has spent decades innovating, creating incredible animation that blends technologies in a way that holds up shockingly well after all this time. So that is my number 10 through 6.
Some solid studios there. And basically, it kind of illustrated what we mentioned earlier, is that so many of these will be repeats just kind of since there's not many that can work as prolifically as some of these folks do.
Right.
So my number 10 is MAPPA as well. My number 9, because I don't have a whole lot to say about these ones for the most part, so I'm just going to go through them, is a Studio Chizu, which, at least as far as batting average is concerned, since it's Mamoru Hosoda's movies, and I've liked all of them really except Mirai, I was like, 3 out of 4 is pretty good. And at the very least, they all have very high quality animation and things, and the art style. I really like his people design and things of that nature. Then it's Madhouse, then Studio Bones, and then the hardest decision, which put it at number 6, is JC Staff.
All right. We ready for mine?
Sure.
Okay, cool. So coming in at number 10, I've got Studio Dean. I'm really happy that I got to include them in this list because people shit on Dean all the time, and it makes sense because they're very inconsistent. However, they were one of the main studios, and I don't want to say I gravitated toward them in the beginning because I didn't even really understand what studios were in the beginning. But they just happened to put out a lot of stuff that I started watching when I was getting into anime. So you've got stuff like Hellgirl, and you've got Higurashi. And then they're still doing stuff I like today. Like they made Konosuba, they made Korewa Zombie Desu Ka. They did a bunch of cool shit that I feel like doesn't exactly fly under the radar, but isn't appreciated as much as it should be. And so I'm glad to put them on here, even though they have also created many horrible things. But when you've got like a billion things under your filmography, that is bound to happen. They're not all going to be winners. Number 9, I've got White Fox. Some of my favorite shows from them include ReZero, Steins Gate, Goblin Slayer. There's not much apart from those series that I have loved from White Fox, but the things that they have done well, I feel like they've done very well. And so, based on just those alone, I think that it was enough to put them up there. Number 8, I've got Feel. Really good when it comes to the slice of life series. I feel a lot of their character designs, stylistically very bright, and they've got a much different aesthetic from a lot of other studios, because you've got things like Tsukigakide and even the later seasons of Oregairu, very stylized and nice looking. But then they've got things like Jinsei as well, which is another under the radar slice of life comedy show that I enjoyed a lot. So that's Feel at 8. Number 7, UFO table, UFO table, ufotable, whatever the fuck you want to call them. I will never understand the actual pronunciation of it. And they're mainly on here due to the Fate franchise and all they've done with that. I mean, of course, they've done things like Demon Slayer as well, but it's really Fate and the Garden of Sinners series that I feel like they have elevated to unbelievable levels, and just great compositing all around, wonderful effects, wonderful audio editing. They know what they're doing, and they do what they do well. And then at 6, I've got Doga Kobo, who made it a lot higher up on my list than I thought they would. But I really appreciate how they consistently put out the same anime over and over again, but it's always a slightly different formula, and I enjoy it. And it's always just like really small girl tries to exist in a workplace, but has anxiety issues and an inferiority complex. They've made that show 5 times now, and I've loved it every time. Some notable things from them include New Game, which is another example of one of those, as well as Plastic Memories, which was actually the first show I ever reviewed for Fandom Post, and Tada Never Falls in Love, which is another underrated rom-com from the Nozaki-kun people.
That reminds me of your number 6. You said they make the same anime over and over again, but they just do it well.
Yeah.
I believe that's the same thing you said about Ozu. The director makes basically the same movie every time, but it's always really good.
And he is my favorite Japanese actual film director.
So Ozu, same as Doga Kobo. Got him.
Basically, just instead of focusing purely on cute girls, he focuses on family dynamics and how sad they are.
Yeah, both sound right up your alley, really.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna do one thing and continue to do it well, and you're good. Like, you don't have to change the formula as long as you're good at what you do.
That's what people should tell Guy Ritchie.
Okay, I guess
Darius,
yeah, you can count down your 10 through 6.
Okay, I had to cut off one of my favorites ever, so it's an honorable mention briefly to Tatsunoko, the creators of Makogogo, Speed Racer, Tekkaman Blade, a lot of the superhero anime, and also the Super Dimension Century, the Super Dimension mecha shows like Macross, Genesis Clamor, and things like that. So I had to leave them off, but they did get an honorable mention. So my number 10 is Wit Studio. Number 9, Toei Animation for the classic stuff like Captain Harlock, Galaxy Express, all the Gonagai, Mazinger Z, Getarobos type stuff, Voltron, so many classics from them, it's not even funny. Number 8 is Mappa. Number 7, Sunrise. They did a lot of the 80s mecha shows, which I was a complete mech fanatic for them. So, Votoms, Gundam, Elgheim, stuff like that. And I think they were involved with Cal Geiger. I can't remember, but not sure. And number 6 would be Bones.
Nice.
I haven't thought about Votoms in years.
Oh, I'm addicted to that thing. I'm addicted to
Darius
that show.
is always thinking of Votoms.
Yeah, that's. I saw that for the first time when we found VHS tapes in our college board game club, game box. It was all these board games and then a 3 VHS set of Votoms.
Hey, you can always catch it on High Dive, dude. I think it's still there. Yeah, I binge it every time I can.
Nice. All right. So let's read some submissions. I've got my friends that have submitted some lists here. So from my convention group and Discord server that I talk on a lot. We've got Inter Forever, number 5, Sunrise, number 4, Shaft, number 3, A1 Pictures, number 2, Bones, number 1, Kyoto Animation. Then from Sync, we have number 5, Cloverworks, number 4, UFO Table, number 3, Comics Wave Films, number 2, Kyoto Animation, number 1, Trigger. From Zelos, he couldn't decide on what number 5 should be, so he gave me top 4. So number 4, Trigger. Number 3, Shaft. Number 2, Kyoto Animation. Number 1, Gynax. And Giuseppe. Number 5, JC Staff. Number 4, Bones. Number 3, Cloverworks. Number 2, A1 Pictures. And number 1, Madhouse. And then some of my college and or former work friends. From Morgan, we have number 5, Gynax. Number 4, Toei Animation. Number 3, Wit Studio. Number 2, Studio Ghibli. Number 1, Bones. Sebastian gave me a top 3, so we've got number 3, Production IG, number 2, Sunrise, and number 1, Madhouse. And my friend Wayne, number 5, Wit Studio, number 4, Kyoto Animation, number 3, Gynax, number 2, Bones, and number 1, Madhouse.
Like a lot of the same folks showing up, which is good. I mean, they make tons of really great stuff, so it's no surprise. It kind of makes me feel better about my own list in a way, because that's what I was concerned of. I was like, oh, I'm not gonna have anything unique or interesting.
No, that's why I want to, list off what anime put them each on our list, so that, at least that will be something personal for each one.
All right, so it looks like it's my turn to jump into number 5, yeah?
Yep.
Cool. So, as I mentioned earlier, this was probably the one hard decision of the list was between JC Staff at 6 and this studio at number 5. And what it really boiled down to was which studios shows that I really loved or changed my paradigm on what anime could and could not be, or just what styles I was completely unaware of, and that really got me into it. And with JC Staff, that was Flying Witch, mainly, and its introduction for me as a now lover of Iyashike and slow life shows, since Flying Witch is perfect. But what beat it out at number 5 was UFO Table, or Fate Zero in particular. Fate Zero is my first, as I put it, grown-up anime. So I watched this in college around the time that it came out, and up until that point, I was really just watching, your Naruto's, Dragon Ball Z's, Prince of Tennis's, weekly Shonen Jump stuff, which, is geared towards, teenagers and young boys and stuff like that. So for the most part, you're not really going to get a whole lot of deep philosophical messages, or just fucking adults that aren't constantly killing each other for the purposes of just defending a planet or destroying a planet. So when my friend turned me on to Fate Zero, I was just completely blown away by what anime could and what it was able to accomplish with these, complex adult characters and these deep sort of philosophical beliefs that they had in terms of the fate of the world and humanity's response and things of that nature. And it also helped that the show looks just absolutely fantastic, even by, today's standards, and Fate Zero was 2011, I think.
Yeah.
So it's been a dozen years, and you could still pop that bitch on, and it will look absolutely fantastic. All the character art is great. The colors just pop. The animation is so kinetic, but also has a flow to it. So it's not like you're just watching sort of Dragon Ball Z style violence where they move so quickly that most people are just a blur, and you have to go by where the blur marks are, the sound effects, which is fun. But this had impact and a true feeling of weight behind what the characters Arturia or Alexander or Gilgamesh were trying to achieve and their power. so that was just what really got me. The other show, obviously, that they do most of the time, if not all the time now, is Demon Slayer, which you could say a lot of the same things about, except it has more of its ups and downs in terms of uh, sort of adult characters. And I mean, I've talked not so generously about the comedy of the show, and that's not entirely on them, but still, I guess the execution of it, you could say, is on the studio and the director and all that stuff. But yeah, Fate Zero just kind of changed what I felt about anime and the studio in particular, especially because they later went on to make Unlimited Blade Works, which kind of cleaned up what I think was it Dean that did the first one.
Dean did the first one. Yeah, that's one of the shows I didn't mention.
Yeah, because I know that I've actually never seen the Dean one, so I don't really know what the hullabaloo is in terms of.
As I like the Dean show, but I understand that it is bad. They do. There are a lot of visual novel adaptations that try and pack too much into one thing, and with the way Fate works as a visual novel, it's 3 entirely separate stories. And in the Dean anime, they kind of take little pieces of each of them and mesh them together in a way that makes little sense at all while adding completely original content that was not in any of the visual novel routes to, I don't know, sort of bridge the gap. And it's weird, and the script was bad, and there's just a lot of it that didn't or doesn't really hold up. I remember watching it at the time and not really having any problems with it, but when you look back on it today, there are several glaring issues, and it's nothing compared to what UFO Table has done.
And
Yeah.
like, that's all definitely true, and I'm sure hurts a lot more from the perspective of someone who is familiar with the source material. But even if you don't have that perspective, and just talking about like production, since that's like the topic here, the thing you don't want to do is watch Fate Zero and then watch the Diname, which is what I did because there was no UFO Table adaptation announced yet. And whoo boy, those are only 5 years apart. Like you said, Fate Zero is a dozen years old now.
Only 5 years apart? Oh my god, it feels like
2006 to
20.
2011. Yeah, and incredible.
That's wild. Yeah, I watched Dean first, so I have a
Right.
completely different
Most
outlook
people
on
did.
it.
Right. Yeah.
It wasn't. There was like a meme or something about the writing in particular, if I
People
remember.
die when they are killed.
Okay,
Yes.
that's what
That's
I was
the
gonna
one.
say, but I wasn't sure if that was real.
There are a lot of
Yeah.
lines in the visual novel that are bad as well, and I don't know if that's due to a translation issue or just Nasu being fucking weird. But I don't remember that one. It's possible that shows up in the game itself, but either way, when you get that, you have to change that. That's not good. That can't pass.
Yeah. So the other thing that they also did like Kara no Kyokai, which I've never watched, but I know that was a big deal.
So
And
good.
the fun little thing that they do, which Production IG used to be responsible for, is they make the opening animations for the Tales games, which is really cool. That's one of the things that is most kind of draws you into the Tales games immediately, is they have most of the time these like beautiful animated openings with all the characters. It's like you're watching an extended, anime opening video. And I think I'm pretty sure UFO Table has done those since picking up after Production IG. But yeah, so UFO Table has my number 5 because it just it was tough. It was real tough between them and JC staff. Especially, I think what finally put UFO Table over is after Flying Witch and some other things. I was like, I don't really enjoy a lot of these other shows or have even watched them.
Yeah.
So I think that was finally kind of what put the scales a little bit in UFO Table's favor.
Nice. All right, DJ, how about you?
My number 5, and probably the biggest studio on my list, I want to say, just in terms of size and output. A1 Pictures was mentioned in a few of the Friend top rankings. They are consistently impressive. How do I word this? Animating things that other people tend to not animate, and I will embellish on that momentarily. Some of my favorite shows from them include Saikano, Your Lie in April, Kaguya-sama, and the things that I was alluding to just moments ago, several idol shows like The Idol Master. They do all of the adaptations for that and 22/7. One of the big issues with most modern idol anime is that there's this tendency to sort of switch to CG for any of the dance numbers, and A1 has not done that at all. They seem to just refuse to use CG in any of the idol stuff, and it results in something that looks significantly better, and it's not a jarring departure from how the show looks on its own. Their filmography is gigantic. They've done a lot of stuff I didn't name that I enjoy as well. And
Silver
I think
Spoon.
just from an output standpoint and how they're always doing something that I seem to enjoy, I think they deserve a spot on here. Even Lycoris Recoil was another exceptionally animated show. And I feel like when they're on top of their game, they are on top of their game. And they're one of those studios that can pull people from basically anywhere they want because they have a lot of money. So I'm sure that aids in that as well. But overall, I think that they're great, and I think that it will be further evident when we get to my next pick. So
You forgot to mention, looking through their list, they made Hypnosis Mike.
they did make Hypnosis Mike, and I will mention I'm pretty sure that was it's CG animated as well. Like the people were normal, but they had some weird CG effects going on with the rapping. That's a show I try to forget exists.
With the rapping bits.
You say that, but every single mention I've ever heard of Hypnosis Mike comes from you.
No, wait, you're right. I tell myself that I like to pretend it doesn't exist, but realistically, I'm thinking about it all day, every day.
Right. Exactly. Darius is always thinking of Votoms. DJ is always thinking of Hypnosis Mike.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, A1 was another one I was looking through and found some shows that I liked, but yeah, their portfolio is just gigantic.
Yeah.
They did Grimgar, they did Erased.
They have
They did-
Space Brothers, which is such a weird sort of deal for them because it's about two adult-ass brothers trying to be astronauts.
And really, the weirdest thing about that for them is that it was, hundreds of episodes long, where normally they stick to like one or two core shows.
Yeah, it looks like it was. I have the Wikipedia open. It says 99 episodes and then a 90-minute movie.
That's right. It was only 99. Okay, yeah. Still much longer than their normal stuff. Yeah.
We're apparently getting a Hypnosis Mike sequel, by the way, which is a thing I just found out on the A1 Pictures wiki.
There you go.
Really brightens my day hearing that.
Yeah.
Between that and Birdie Wing.
Yeah, these are actually DJ's favorite shows.
They're up there.
All right. Darius, you can go before me on this one.
There he is.
Maybe. Hey, edit this out. Okay, my number 5 is Studio Ghibli. So my favorite works of theirs include Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, Grave of the Fireflies, Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, My Neighbor Totoro, and Howl's Moving Castle. Obviously we did like our director ranking like half a decade or more ago. Well, there goes Darius. Cool. So Miyazaki, Hayao Miyazaki was number 1 on that for me and lots of other people, and has remained as such. So, he deserves most of the credit for everything about what makes Ghibli so great. But, you can't make anime on your own, and the fact that an entire studio is able to realize his impossible standards that he sets forth, and so consistently, even for stuff he's not involved with at all, it really shows that, he couldn't churn out all the masterpieces that he has with just any crew behind him. And, I mentioned Grave of the Fireflies, of course. That was not only not made by Miyazaki, it was made by Takahata, but it was made simultaneously with Totoro. So Miyazaki was busy, he couldn't interfere or contribute to it. And that's, one of the greatest films of all time, 35 years later. So yeah, I think, with or without Miyazaki, I think Ghibli is easily the best studio for producing animated films worldwide. I'd put them above, anyone else in the US or France or UK. And, they have such universal appeal and such a warm personal touch that permeates through their work. So I think they deserve all of that international success that they've achieved. Darius, are you here? Okay.
Yeah, when you had mentioned earlier that, a studio is not just a director, and sometimes people think about the individuals that work for that studio, this is definitely one of those.
Right.
Where, yeah, they've had, like your Takahatas and stuff, but for most people, Studio Ghibli and Hayao Miyazaki are essentially interchangeable terms.
Totally. Yeah. But, it's fair to, talk about them separately. Also, I should have said Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, kinda, because technically Studio Ghibli was not founded when that was released. But it was, founded immediately after from the exact team that made the movie, and it has been under their library and their releases and considered a Studio Ghibli film ever since. So, which again just kind of points to the same point of like a studio doesn't really mean anything. It's about the individual teams that work on something, individual creators. But yeah, Nausicaa, and certainly Cagliostro are Miyazaki films without Ghibli, and like Future Boy Conan, that TV series, is one of my favorite works of his, long before Ghibli. And like I said, Grave of the Fireflies, no Miyazaki involvement, still one of Ghibli's most famous, most critically acclaimed, and definitely greatest films. In fact, so Rotten Tomatoes just did the top anime films of all time based on Tomato Meter, and the top three, all three that had a 100% certified fresh, all of them Takahata. It wasn't until I don't know, 5 or 6 that we got to a Miyazaki movie. So critics love Takahata. Speaking of Ozu earlier, I consider Takahata to be kind of the Ozu to Miyazaki's Kurosawa.
That's a selling point. It's because I like one Ghibli movie right now, and I only started liking it within the last year. And I feel like there are Takahata's done several things that I feel like have a higher chance of enjoying that I will likely visit eventually, but I just haven't yet because of so many Miyazaki movies burning me out.
Yeah.
Which one is that?
Which one I like?
Yeah.
Spirited Away.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone likes Spirited Away. Yeah.
It's hard to not like Spirited Away. Hi, Darius.
Hey.
Yeah, it was just an exceptional movie all around. So
absolutely. Yeah.
They have all. Yeah. I'm sure they'll show up later on lists, but I like basically all of theirs except one, which I just loathe.
Yeah. Ghibli has only made 2 or 3 bad things, and they were all by another Miyazaki.
The disappointing son.
Yes, the disappointing
Miyazaki.
Poor Goro. Okay. Darius, you can read off your top 5 or your number 5. Yeah.
Let's try this again. All right. My number 5 anime studio basically got me into watching anime a lot. This one's called AIC. It's been around. They were responsible for much of the OAV boom of the mid '80s. Although Dallas was the very first anime OAV. Basically, these guys produced much of what we now call classics. Stuff like Megazone 2-3, Fight Xer 1, Bubblegum Crisis, Gal Force. And they've been around a long time doing Oh My Goddess is now a classic, now seen as a classic. Vampire Princess Miyu, Hades Project Zero Rhymer. These guys have been doing a lot in Detonator Oregon, another one I enjoy a lot. One of their more recent, relatively recent, is They did initial work on Space Battleship Yamato 2199, one of the most incredible sci-fi anime of the last decade. I don't care what anybody says. So yeah, AIC basically got a lot of people pretty much into anime, especially when like a lot of the OAVs were relatively cheap to import and put onto American shelves by companies like Central Park Media or Media Blasters or ADV back in the day. So yeah, AIC is definitely somebody one company I owe a lot of my anime fandom to.
Had not recognized that name or heard about them before, but in looking them up, there's two things that they both put out in the summer season of 2012 that I absolutely adore.
I know where this
And
is
that
going.
was Humanity Has Declined and Love, Elections, and Chocolate, which is a really good visual novel adaptation from a game I really like. And it's interesting how I'd never heard of the studio, but they put out two of my favorite adaptations. That's cool.
Did you in fact know where that was going, Cain?
Yeah, I did. I knew that DJ Like Humanity has declined a lot.
Gotcha.
The other thing that I was looking at their list, and you get to 2010 and you see Oremo.
Yeah, I miraculously have not watched Oremo, which is weird because that's a show I would definitely watch. Humanity Has Declined, though, shit's underrated. From one of my favorite visual novel writers, he wrote a light novel series. It's that, and it works.
Nice.
They
Show's
also
weird.
made Gare Zero, which I think has the best anime pilot episode ever created. So that's
I say that about
Yeah, these
Guilty
guys-
Crown, and I feel like those shows have gotten compared before.
have they? I'm not familiar with Guilty Crown. I just Gare Zero is one of the first shows that I picked for my like college anime club when it was my turn to sort of pick one for the season, and I picked it solely on what happens in that pilot episode. Like, I didn't care if anybody wanted to watch a series. I just wanted to see what the reactions were to how Gare Zero opens up, and I was not disappointed.
Oh man, I forgot to mention Teaching Miyu, which got a lot of people in anime back then. So yeah, them and Megazone and God, so many. Yeah, they really initiated the much of the anime boom, whether a lot of people realize it or not. Geez, I'm still now I'm sitting there thinking about like going to anime clubs myself. Wow, man, like back then, before Animigo got bubble prices, we had to like watch and see what that stuff was like, Megazone and stuff like that. Oh man, I feel
You
old.
are.
Yes, thank you.
Smooth Kestrel.
All right. Do you want to read some of these top threes?
Yeah. I mean that part doesn't. Yay! It's still here. Okay. All right. I have some. Got some. I copied some of my own friend list. Got Darren John Ashmore. His favorites were Ahoy Animation, Tatsunoko Productions, and Zuyo Izo. We'll look that up. We'll learn them. Rashad Moore contributes Gynax, Trigger, and Madhouse. Jason P. Howard, he also contributes Madhouse, AIC, and Sunrise. Yad Ming Mui, he contributes Studio New, Artland, and Gynax. And Nate Milbank contributes with these are all going from 1 to 3, by the way. It's his is Madhouse, Tokyo Movie Shinsha, and Sunrise. And Chris Cowan, he contributes Production IG, Gynax, and Madhouse. Ben Struss contributes with AIC, Madhouse, and Science Saru. And Isaac Schur has Gynax, UFO Table, and Bones. And Cain Stewart contributes with Bones, Gynax, and Trigger. So yeah, so a lot of the same people are popping up here. Very interesting.
Again, relatively small pool, so lots of overlap. All right, into our top fours, DJ.
Yeah, so piggybacking off of the A1 Pictures at number 5, I have Cloverworks at number 4, which is just a branch off of A1 Pictures that's separated into its own thing several years ago. They are inconsistent, but like A1 Pictures, who is more consistent, when they're on top of their game, they're on top of their game, and they've put out some of the best anime over the last several years. And even with the bumps in the road and the disruptions in production that they have experienced with things like Persona, and Promised Neverland Season 2, which everyone hates. They've also put out things like Wonder Egg Priority and Horimiya and Rascal Does Not Dream Bunny Girl Senpai and fucking Akebi Sailor Uniform, which was a much less plot-heavy show, but still really well made. And those are all shows that I hold close to my heart. And I just think I've got a lot of faith in Cloverworks going forward, despite it still being extremely early in their lifetime. And if they keep putting things out at the rate that they've been putting things out, it is going to be alarming, and it is going to disrupt the market, because when you've got like fucking 4 big name shows coming out in one season, it's hard to not take notice of that. And I've got no idea what's going on the production front and how they're able to do things like that, but I'm sure a lot of it's pulling people from elsewhere and help from A1, but they are good at what they do, and they're only going to improve, I think.
Yeah, it's another interesting paradigm of the anime studio system that we've touched on a few different times, which is that at this point, almost all active anime studios were branched off of other studios. So you get to see them kind of like a lot of times, it'll be a studio that gets big enough to have multiple sub studios within it, and then one of those sub studios will leave, or it will be the team behind a particular production that like working together will leave. So you had like I mentioned with Studio branching off of IG. What production was it that spawned that? It was Guilty Crown. We owe a lot to Guilty Crown.
Yeah.
And Trigger, of course, was the Gurren Lagann painting stocking team at Gainax. Kara was the Ava team at Gainax. So this Bones was the Cowboy Bebop team at Sunrise. This is
I didn't know that one.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's kind of like the standard for how these studios get formed. Ghibli was the Nazca team. Like, nobody talks about Topcraft, but that was technically where they worked for Nazca. So yeah, it's really interesting to see how they branch off, get a lot of help from their parent, have a lot of the same stylistic attributes, and then gradually grow, expand, develop their own style, and then maybe make their own sub studios and have their own spin-offs. Certainly happened. Anyway, okay, let's put Darius at the second position on this one. You can go. You're number 4.
Oh, groovy. Oh, well, funny you should mention some of these spin-offs, because mine is kind of a cheat. I started with Gainax. Basically, it's a kind of a cheat. I put Gainax and Trigger at the same spot because...
Arrest this man. Against the rules.
Hey, shit happens. Catch me if you can. Studio Gainax was created a very long time ago. In fact, one of their first well-known shorts, Daikon, turns 40 this year. Oh my God, we are old. And it's the most notorious thing that was all these crazy imagery of different pop culture and sci-fi melded together, and it basically it kicked up their career. And they went on to create Wings of Honor Amis, which actually bombed, but the quality was incredible. And then they went to do Gunbuster, which the Blu-ray I just got my hands on last night, and it is still phenomenal. If you can order Discotek's version of that, it's a very nice Blu-ray and a very good dub on top of it. But yeah, they've created some of the most well-known anime and known to pop culture. 2 of the more notorious ones would be Fooly Cooly and Neon Genesis Evangelion. And Studio Trigger came out of that, and they formed their own sort of stuff, formed their own company. And so I kind of meshed them together. But you have stuff like Gurren Lagann and Promare, and the Candy and Stocking with Garterbell, which has one of the greatest dubs I've ever heard in my life. They literally, Funimation was literally asked to create, add more profanity so the Japanese could learn swear words for it because it was just such a goofball show. But yeah, so you're right. I cheated. I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not. But the quality of work that's been progenerated from that, from one studio to the next, quality is undeniable. And so yeah, that's why they're.
The police should be at your house momentarily.
I know Wings and Gynax stuff in general just has some of the most impressive detail to like mechanical animation that I've ever seen. If there's anything to take away from any like Gynax work, even if you don't like the story or the characters, it's just there is so much detail in like structural animation and mechanical animation, like especially in Wings when they're like putting the ship together and they're going through the launch sequence, and you just see like every single tiny gauge and every single tiny wire and tube and pump going. It's hypnotic.
Yeah, it is beautiful work. You're like, wow. It is nearly a perfect film, and yeah, you see some of that great detail in Gunbuster, and some of it in Nadia. Where I forgot to mention Nadia. Yeah, I mean, those guys were really on their game, and they rose from failure to being an incredible success story.
Once everyone who was important left for other studios, Gynax has not basically existed.
Sorta.
Nadia is its own like tragic story in a sense.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's the most interesting version of Captain Nemo we'll ever see, where he gets a spaceship. It's great.
It's great if you just cut out like the middle 20 episodes.
That's what everybody has said. Like apparently the studio, the TV company said, "Yeah, we want 10 more episodes of it," and you're like, "Okay, sure." But
yeah, it's a definition of boardroom meddling.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, Nadia, like I mentioned Guilty Crown before, Nadia was kind of the progenitor of Evangelion. Evangelion was actually intended to be a sequel to Nadia, but they couldn't get the rights from NHK, so they had to make their own story. Or a new story. Yep. And here we are. Okay. My number 4 is Piero. So their works include the Bleach series, Great Teacher Onizuka, the Naruto series, the Kingdom series, the Mysterious Cities of Gold, and the 12 Kingdoms. Now for Bleach, Naruto, and Kingdom, it's their later seasons that specifically earned them their spot on my list. They've basically been the other Toei in terms of adapting all the other big shonen hits into highly popular long-running TV anime alongside Toei. And they've generally managed to keep the highs higher and the lows maybe not lower, but less frequent. But along with a significant percentage of their output not falling into that category, and those ones kind of standing on the same level as the works of other studios without the big series with hundreds of episodes. They've also just been able to reinvent some of their long-running series with much higher standards of quality in recent years. So like the first 2 seasons of Kingdom had a lot of really ugly CG, but the latter 2 are all 2D. It starts to really give the material the treatment it deserves, because it's a great storytelling and it looks a lot better now. So that's great. I've spent the past 7.5 months gushing about how unbelievably good they managed to make Bleach for the 1,000-Year Blood War revival, which started a decade after the original series ended. And I think in terms of just elevating the quality from the level of the source material to the level of the adaptation, that series might be the most impressive manga to anime adaptation I've ever seen. Because like I felt like that arc was barely readable in the manga, and one of my favorite anime. So yeah, incredible adaptation work from that team. So that put them up way more spots than they would have been, a year ago. But they've done a lot of great work, like I mentioned, anyway.
Do they do Yu Yu Hakusho?
Yep.
Case closed.
Studio Pierrot, I like some of the other work that they did a long time ago. Area 88 is one of the greatest air combat anime you'll ever watch. I was a big fan of that. Also, this OAV short that was kind of fun called Bao. It's like 50 minutes long. That's from the creator of JoJo Bizarre. Very short, very bloody, but lots of fun to watch. So yeah, Studio Pierrot was also Space Musketeer Bismarck, which some may have seen in the United States as Saber Rider and the Star Sheriffs, classic mech show. So yeah, I'm also a big fan, like you, of Studio Pierrot. As before they became pretty much a juggernaut.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, like Cain said, Yu Yu Hakusho, that was over 30 years ago. So yeah, pretty much for the past 3 decades, them and Toei have been kind of, trading off all the really long-running adaptations of the big popular Shonen Jump series. All right, Cain, how about yours? Your number 4.
Alrighty. My number 4 is Science Saru, and admittedly, this is mainly for Masaki Yuasa.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'll just get that out of the way. But I think Science Saru has some of my favorite and most expressive art in anime. It's why I made here at number 4. I just really love like Yuasa's, and I guess Science Saru's sort of bubbly, like morphing aesthetic. Like the characters are as fluid as the story in the world that they are in, and I think they have some of the most creative, like use of color, use of sound, especially in Keep Your Hands Off Isaacin, which I think is probably one of the best pieces of media about the creation of media that I've ever seen. And the parts that you love, as well as mating with the parts that must be done and that you may hate about the creative process, whether that's the business side or, trying to wrangle and herd the creative types who can be flighty and things of that nature. But they've also worked with Ping Pong, which is a partnership with Tatsunoko, another show that is just you take a look, and on the surface it's so it's ugly. It just looks like the characters have lumps and bumps and misaligned teeth, and their proportions are not correct and everything, but it just adds such an incredibly charming and expressive quality to their shows that make the characters truly memorable, not only for their personalities and their decisions, but also just how their designs fit them. So it's less about like palette swapping the same face and more like you feel like their design is a roadmap to who they are and who they've become. And Keep Your Hands Off Isaacin, I think, does a really fun job of this to the extreme, in that like and I wish I could remember the names, but I'm always just terrible at names. I just know them by what I there's Angry Totoro Girl, Goblin Girl, and Model Girl. And Angry Totoro Girl is very businessy, so of course she's very straight and narrow and doesn't take shit. And then Goblin Girl just wants to work on sound and all this other stuff. And it just, every time I see something by Yuasa and then Science Saru, I always know that I'm going to get like a visual treat, and not just in the standard ways or the more conventional of just like the action looks so good. It's more like it's the total package of things looking just a pinnacle of creative expression in anime, and rather than being able to tie it down to just one particular thing. But yeah, Science Saru is my number 4.
Did he do Devilman Crybaby there?
He did. Yep.
Yeah, that still blows my mind. So yeah, I can see why you would choose him, but I've heard a lot about Yuasa's works and everything outside of that, and
Yep, Blue Over the Wall,
look at it.
Tatami Galaxy, I believe.
Yeah, that was Yuasa, but it was at Madhouse.
Yeah, I know it wasn't. That's Yuasa, because I know that's where he used to be, right? And then he split off to make Science Saru.
Yeah, I mean, he
Something like that.
founded Science Saru, but he wasn't like tied to a studio before. Like you said, Ping Pong was at Tatsunoko, Tatami Galaxy was at Madhouse, so he got around. He did, I think Mind Game was Studio 4 Degrees Celsius, I think. Yeah. Okay. All right, so now we got some more of Darius's friends. DJ, do you want to read them? Do you want Darius to read them? Oh, DJ not.
I think DJ is currently having some audio problems.
All right. So I'll pass this selection along to Darius. Obviously, they came all from him originally anyway. But just since I put them out of order, there we go.
Okay. On here.
Yeah.
Okay, you did. Okay, you just put them up. Got it. All right. Let's see. Walter Amos. His favorite was Artland. I think they did Legend of Galactic Heroes. If I know anything about Walter.
Yeah. Co-produced with a couple other studios. Yeah, they also did Mushishi.
Yeah. Let's see. Leto Atreides, Zibek for Yamato 2199. And you guys still hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you're
Thank
fine.
goodness. For Zibek and Gainax, Stephanie Cote with Studio Ghibli and Toei Animation. Cameron Alexander Collins with Sunrise and Tatsunoko Productions. Justin Miller with MAPPA. Thomas Alexander with Trigger. Al FND with Kyoto Animation. Oh, we haven't talked about them. But they've been through a lot, and they're still putting out good work again. As well as Gainax. Anime God King, who really liked AIC. And Jess Merriman, she loves Studio 4 Degrees C. And Devin Nicholson likes Madhouse a lot. Sharon McPherson enjoys Cloverworks. Oh, we haven't mentioned them yet either. As well as
Oh, that was DJ's last one.
DJ's last one? My bad.
Hey, cool. I didn't have to read them.
Yep, you got out of it. How convenient. Convenient time.
Congratulations.
Calculated.
So yeah, and Bones. And DJ is still. Oh yeah, I'm reading this way too much. Welcome back, by the way.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. So now on to number 3s. So my number 3 is Sunrise. Their works include both seasons of Code Geass, most of the Gintama anime, and Cowboy Bebop. Now these 3 that I picked out are 3 extremely different series. The only real commonality being that I consider all of them to be among the greatest anime of all time. And just this small selection from their massive catalog really displays both their consistency of excellence and their incredible range. 2 of them are anime originals, my top 2 original anime. And I actually checked my whole top anime list. And other than a handful of movies, mostly like the Ghibli ones that I mentioned, a few others, which still appear after these 2. These 2 Sunrise shows are the only originals in my top 60 anime. So yeah, always like to see good originals. I tend to prefer adaptations, as it turns out. And so Sunrise being able to produce some of my favorites bumps them up a bit. And Gintama, that's just another long-running Jump adaptation, and it doesn't really seem like it should be anything special as an anime. But in fact, they made it so much better than the manga ever was. From the artwork and the animation improving so much over Sorachi's art style. And it's amazing that they pumped out an episode of that every week for so many years. So from that to the way that they visualize the comedy, it makes it seem like they get his sense of humor better than he does. Like, they just execute it all so well. And then, when it does want to be serious and want to be an action show, it really just peaks in animation quality. And that's something that they're always good at. And everything that they do, they always go all out. They deliver these climactic peaks of animation in those big sequences. But they still always give the quieter moments all the love they need. And like I mentioned, comedy, drama, slice of life, whatever they're doing, in addition to, action and all that kind of stuff, is just absolutely top notch. All right, next up, Darius, do you want to go next?
Oh, my number 3? Well, actually, my number 3 was explained a lot better by Kestrel, so I'll only go after it briefly. It is Studio Ghibli. I've been a big fan of Takahata and Hayao Miyazaki primarily for a very long time. Like everybody else here, we really do enjoy their works, both TV and movies sometimes. Once I saw Nausicaa, that was it. Way back, unfortunately I had seen Warriors of the Wind on cable once, and I was like, "What the heck is this?" And oh my goodness, some terrible acting. Even back then, I kind of knew this is terrible. And then I finally got the full treatment, and I was like, "Oh, damn, this is really awesome." And so, and what was the name of the studio that formed them? Top Craft, I believe. Top Craft.
Yeah.
And little known fact, they had also worked on another lovely film entitled "The Last Unicorn," working with Rankin Bass. A lot of those same animators worked with that. And so before they formed Studio Ghibli and everything. And it's I still think of when I think of like my favorite films ever, it's Nausicaa and as well as The Tale of Princess Kaguya, basically, which is Isao Takahata's magnum opus of command of his animation and storytelling technique. So like those are like two of my absolute favorite films ever. Also, Spirited Away, it got the Oscar, it kind of deserved it. So, but yeah, Studio Ghibli, I'll make my description of them brief. They were one of my top 3 favorite studios that we've ever seen.
All right, Cain, how about your number 3?
Guess what, Darius?
What?
Studio Ghibli is also my number 3.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, don't say.
Yeah, so I won't. I don't really have much else to tack on other than they make banger after banger after banger, except Pompoko, which sucks.
I love that one. You think this is the carpet you're standing on?
It's terrible. Can't stand it. And the only other thing I had to add, because you two both pretty much summed it up rather fantastically, is they also have a theme park. Which, I mean, how many other animation studios have their own theme parks?
God, I need to go to Japan.
So you got to give them props there. They got a museum and a theme park. Like, come on.
Oh,
yep. Ghibli's my number 3.
Hey, you got me thinking about like when they had the Miyazaki thing at in L.A. The Oscar Museum. Get to briefly see that. Did you get to make it out there in time, Kestrel?
I did. It was the last week that was open was the first week I was living here. So
nice going, man.
Yeah. I did not, in fact, schedule my life around the Miyazaki exhibit. It just happened to end a week after my lease ran out in Vermont.
Way to go, man.
But I did make sure to get there in time. Yeah. Wow, that wasn't even intentional since I didn't schedule Darius into this, I didn't realize that you had the same number 3. So, yep, that worked out well. And guess what? DJ's number 3 is also my number 2. So we're also going to share that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let him talk about it first, but I'll just preface this with this little factoid. It's you can say what it is. What's our number 3 and 2?
Number 3 and our number 2 is Kyoto Animation.
Yeah. So
we had a whole ass episode about them.
That was what I was going to say. And in fact, one of my friends who I read one of his lists earlier, he happened to just listen to that episode this week. And apparently we promised or teased a follow-up episode like that. So here's your very tiny version of that. Me and DJ talking about KyoAni some more. So go ahead.
Yeah, Kyoto Animation's great. And they are one of those studios that you can just look at something they make and know it's them immediately. And I think that is like a fucking textbook example of good production. They are consistently high quality with basically every single thing they do. And they treat their staff better than any other studio ever. So that's cool. They have done so many wonderful things, like my literal favorite anime of all time, Clannad After Story. But then they've got stuff like Hyoka, and they've got Chinibyo, and they've got Violet Evergarden, which is one of the best productions ever. It's just they are consistently way above what the standard is, and horrible things have happened to them, and they have moved forward regardless. But some of the most talented people in anime work for them, and I can't imagine a world without them in it. And I'm glad that they pulled through.
Yeah.
Amen.
So yeah, they are also my number 2. My favorite works of them, obviously Clannad After Story, Silent Voice, Violet Evergarden, especially the movie. Also the Haruhi Suzumiya series, but especially the movie for me. 2 seasons of Full Metal Panic. Fumofu is my favorite of the bunch. And also another key adaptation, the 2006 adaptation of Canon, whatever.
Canon.
Yeah, it's Kanon and katakana, but it's based on, the musical term. Anyway.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, that's why Paco Bell's canon, they play it in the show. Anyway.
Paco Bell's canon starts with a C.
I know, but it's the same in Japanese. They don't have a C. Like,
that's true.
Their first 2 works were canon and air. Like, there's clearly a trend there. Anyway. So, yeah, the thing that makes KyoAni is that even when the content isn't the strongest, their production is always absolutely top-notch, like DJ just said. They're the studio every studio should strive to be.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. This all goes into, what you were just talking about, what we talked about 4 years ago. But, in an industry in which animation staff is mostly freelance, like I mentioned earlier, and suffers through unhealthy overwork, unlivable pay, KyoAni hires its staff as full-time employees, all of them, I think, pays them consistent salaries for normal working hours. In an industry in which so much is outsourced and freelancers are chewed up and spit out, which I also kind of touched upon, KyoAni does virtually every aspect of production in-house, which is, very rare, as we've talked about. So they really make their works their own. They dedicate resources to training young talent to become proficient at their company or anywhere that they choose to go. In a male-dominated industry, KyoAni nurtures female creators, puts them in prominent positions. Naoko Yamada, who is the director of A Silent Voice, which is my favorite anime film of all time, they've really nurtured her talent, gave her a big TV series to direct, gave her a big movie to direct, a bunch of other productions, and, now she's at Science Saru making films and TV series for them. And, without that starting point, it's kind of hard for females to rise up to those positions, even the really talented ones. So yeah, this ethos that defines the studio, you might think in a profit-driven market that it would diminish the quality, but in fact we get exactly the opposite. As we've said, absolutely gorgeous productions. And we've got our distinctive house style, thanks to them all being full-time consistent staff, doing everything in-house. Like DJ mentioned, you can see their style and everything that they do, and that's very deliberate. It's part of their training, really, to get down that style. But it's, very transferable skills, and yeah, it just looks incredible all the time. And, of course, a lot of their works are adaptations, but still they choose some of the most emotional material in all of anime and just elevate it to the highest extent in the process. So you can really feel the sincerity of people working in an environment that values them as humans who deserve to be treated well. And obviously we've talked about the arson attack. So even after the destruction of their main facility, the loss of most of their production material, and the murder of like half their staff, they've come back and they still have the same dedication to the highest standard of quality. And Violet Evergarden, the movie, I think it had started production before that, but I think they lost a lot of the materials for it. So that was made, I think, mostly after all of that and during and after, the initial COVID waves in Japan. And I think, that's one of their greatest works and one of the best movies of the 2020s so far. So, just their story, their drama, and their comeback, I think that's a more poignant story than anything that they've made.
Oh, 100%. Have they done anything original apart from Tamako Market? Because I think that's the only thing.
It's weird when you get into originals and KyoAni because so much of their work is like adapted or is loosely adapted from like light novels that won their awards, and so those were kind of like scripts for their anime in a way. So like Violet Evergarden is like a KyoAni original IP, but technically it had a book written before the TV series aired. Free is another one that goes a little further into the original territory because, like, I think the light novels were the source behind the High Speed prequel movie where they were kids. So the concept was there in print, but all of the content of the TV series I think was original. And yeah, I think most of their works are very liberally adapted. They really create their own works out of whatever source material they work from, especially the ones that are, published through the KyoAni light novel imprint and won their awards and contests and stuff. Tamako Market might be the only one that is just 100% original that I can think of at the moment.
That was a cute show.
Yeah, I think that was probably like my least favorite KyoAni TV series at the time, but
at the time, yeah.
After, well, yeah. Yes, at the time. They have made exactly one absolute fucking train wreck. They, after the arson attack and everything, I watched a lot of the stuff that I hadn't seen originally, like Hyoka, because that didn't get a simulcast at the time. And I watched the Tamako love story film, and that was really good. Again, like
I'm gonna watch that. Aren't there like hardcore Yuri vibes in that? I hear that there were.
I would say
blonde girl.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The main Yuri vibes that you might get from the TV series are kind of squashed in the film, so that might be a bummer for you. But there's always a little bit of underpinning in KyoAni works.
Did you? You didn't get a chance to watch Tsurune, did you?
So that was one that I actually started and dropped for some reason, never went back to.
Yeah, that did the same thing Sound Euphonium did for me, where it started and I didn't care at all.
Okay.
And then it gets to like one point where it just kind of clicks and it becomes this fantastic emotional show out of nowhere. And Tsurune did that in season 2.
I know
it took a while to get there, but like when it hit, it hit.
I know the frame of Sound Euphonium that did that for you. We've never talked about this, and I know exactly what it was.
don't even know if I remember it, but if you tell me, it might spark my memory. I just remember there was one moment where I was like, "Oh shit!"
The girls on the hill.
That might be it.
Okay, it has.
Did it happen in like the middle of the first season?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably it then. I remember it was like episode 6 or 7 where
Yeah,
I was just
sounds
like,
right.
maybe I'll drop this, and then just like there's one moment, and I'm like, "Oh fuck."
It makes sense that you describe it as similar to that series because Sound Euphonium was another one that I had started and then dropped originally when it aired,
Yeah.
and then went back to, and yeah, it definitely gets much much better. So yeah, that makes sense.
Kumiko she's one of my favorite protagonists of the 2010s. She's just so good and snarky and dry, and it's very dissimilar from other just anime girls that you'll follow in shows. So.
But
and
yeah, I think
it's another woman positive thing from Kyoto Animation, and that's what they do.
Yeah, totally. And that was one the Sound Euphonium series that was directed primarily by Tatsuya Ishihara, who's one of DJ and I's favorite directors.
He was my number 2 or my number 1. I can't remember. Oh, he was 2. Shinkai was number 1.
Yeah, I think he was my number 2 at the time as well. I think he's probably like number 3 or 4 for me now. But yeah, excellent director. And Naoko Yamada, who I mentioned, she also worked very heavily with him, directing some of that. And the spin-off movie Liz and the Bluebird was basically the entire team behind A Silent Voice for the only other time that they ever got to work together, because some of them are no longer with us. But yeah, she really shines in films, like the Tomoko love story film. That's why it's so good, because she just really knows how to make a feature. Same thing, like the Cain series was fun. The film I love. Tomoko,
really?
Same thing. Yep, totally.
I didn't watch it because it's a Cain movie. I was just like, like I don't think I need to see this.
You first get to see some of the traits that will, eventually lead into A Silent Voice in her directorial style.
Rad. Oh, I would not expect that out of Cain.
Yeah, no. You should totally watch that and Tomoko Love Story. Get the full Yamada experience.
I'm down. Yeah, I haven't watched a lot of the KyoAni movies.
Gotcha.
I have to watch the Haruhi movie too, which I still haven't.
Oh my god! Yeah. Yeah, I feel like we had this conversation 3 years ago after I wrote my 10 years later on it. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, those are like literally the reason to watch those 3 series are the movies. Jesus. Okay. All right. More number 2s. Let's go with Cain.
Okie dokie. So my number 2 is Studio Trigger. I put them this up high up on the list, sort of in a similar fashion to Science Saru, in that where Science Saru has like this incredibly expressive and bubbling morphing aesthetic. I like Studio Trigger because I think when they're on their A game, they have a complete mastery of like kinetic, frantic energy in their animation, especially when they utilize as many acute, sharp angles as possible. I think another reason I like them so much, and I know this is a reason why a lot of people hate them, is I do enjoy when they also make troll shit like Inferno Cop, because I actually enjoy Inferno Cop because of its like absurd comedy style that feels like Eric Andre or Tim and Eric or whatever, where it's just there to kind of be purposefully shitty and weird. But that's obviously far lower down the ladder compared to things like Cyberpunk Endrunners, which is probably the freshest thing on my list here in terms of any individual show since it just came out last year, or Little Witch Academia, which I adore both the films and the series. I think that's one of the better, witch magic school things that you could watch. So many fun characters and really good, like high energy like animation acting as well. And then Promare, which came out a little bit ago. I saw that in theaters. That was 2019.
Yeah.
I believe. But yeah, kind of like what DJ was saying about a few of his lower down the list. Studio Trigger is a little bit unconventional in that they don't have very many middling series or productions. It's either something really good like Edge Runners or Promare, like I said, or you get, Inferno Cop and shit with which people think sucks generally. So I know that they have their fair share of haters on top of people who really appreciate them and like them like I do. It's hard not to include Gurren Lagann in this, but I know that technically it's not a Studio Trigger production. It is what birthed Studio
count it.
Trigger. Yeah,
Hey,
I always count that as Trigger.
yeah,
it
I
was
count
like
that.
5 years before Trigger existed, though. Like, it
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah,
like
but
a
like
Nausicaa
it's still
deal.
Trigger.
Yeah, I count that shit in my heart. I'm like, that is
Sure.
a Studio Trigger thing in my
Doesn't have
heart.
to be made by
It's
Trigger
close.
to be a
It's
Trigger
close.
anime.
Yeah.
Sure.
But I know technically is it doesn't, but it's so hard not to think of it that way because it really does encapsulate the entire idea behind their aesthetic and their ideology when making animation.
Yes.
So but yeah, it's they haven't like changed how I think about anime in some of the ways the others, but I know when I put something from Trigger on, I'm going to like it in some way, shape, or form, and I just love the almost fly by the seat of your pants, anything could happen at any time, like attitude they have behind what they make, and they blend it well most of the time. Like shows like Cyberpunk and Little Witch have a lot of really like high energy, sort of good times, I guess you could say, but also like a good balance with like character development and drama and things. So it's not just they make action only and then that's all you watch it for. Like it's got a good balance most of the time. And then when you don't want that balance, you put on Inferno Cop or Ninja Slayer or Space Patrol La Loco or something, which is essentially just a motion comic. But yeah, Studio Trigger at number 2 for me, most definitely.
All right. How about Darius?
Okay. You guys can still hear me, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Just making sure. All right. I'm a longtime fan of this particular studio. Also harkens back to my earliest days of anime fandom. Studio Madhouse, which the thing is about Madhouse, they don't have a specific uniform look. Like one might be talking about a Yurisa Yatsura film, and and another person might be talking about Madhouse, and they're talking about Wicked City, but they're both created by Madhouse. I largely became attracted to Madhouse themselves through the works of director Yoshiaki Kawajiri, who basically did a lot of his work for them. He started as an assistant director on SF New Century Lensman, and went on to do a lot of the works that got him famous, like Ninja Scroll, Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, Goku Midnight Eye, things of that nature. But Madhouse themselves has been doing all different kinds of styles from the 1960s to 70s through today. And they're in their own way. They're about as big as Toei or some of the other big houses. But yeah, just when you see the variety of styles that they have managed to turn out, you're like, good lord, where would anime be without these guys? So I mean, if I remember correctly, make certain I want to make certain one director before I speak of him, and yes, there he is, Satoshi Kon. He worked greatly with him, like my second favorite anime director of all time, one of the greats that we lost. He would work with Madhouse very well. And you got stuff like Memories, Cardcaptor Sakura. It's just way too many excellent works that they have done since their inception. Heck, I just got my hands on their old Treasure Island adaptation, and it's genuinely a fun show to watch. So yeah, Madhouse, for the sheer breadth of their work. They're my second favorite studio, even on top of Ghibli.
All right. And DJ, you're number 2.
My number 2 is Shaft. Fucking art, man. They are all the Team Shinbo people. They know what they're doing. Shaft, like Kyoto Animation, but also entirely unlike Kyoto Animation, another entirely stylized studio. You can probably always pick out a Shaft show because if it looks fucking weird and there are head tilts and weird camera angles and strange color usage, that's who you're looking at. If I could choose one studio to work with for the rest of forever, it would be Shaft because it's just so unique and so there's a certain mood that Shaft can generate by just being weird as shit that no one else has been able to touch. And it's disturbing and dark in a way that doesn't even have to be dark to feel dark. It's strange, and I like strange, and I like unique, and I like creative, and those are all of the things that Shaft has embodied throughout the years. Some of my favorite works from them are F, which I commonly cite as the most artistic anime of all time. Great visual novel adaptation, but I actually prefer the anime. Then you've got Madoka and the Magia Record series, which I like, but a lot of people, or a lot of other people don't like. Everybody likes Madoka, though.
Right.
And another anime that got me into anime in this ugly yet beautiful world. Super underrated show, I feel. And I've just, like, I don't typically like to just choose an anime based on the studio that creates it. But Shaft is one of those studios where if they put something out, chances are I'm going to watch it. Because even if it is a shitty story, like Assault Lily, which was a mobile game adaptation they made recently, it's still really cool to watch because of what they can do with the art direction and camera. And it's nice having the same recycled group of people working on essentially everything and overseen by Shinbo. So they're great, and I don't know if it's a weird pick to have them up there because not a lot of other people, it seems, have mentioned them. But with things under their belt like Bakemonogatari, it's strange to not hear them or see them up here, I guess. I don't know. It's weird. I figured there'd be more Shaft picks.
I mean, 2 of my 4 Discord people had Shaft in their top 3 or 4.
That's good. I like those people.
Yeah.
They can
I'll let
stay.
them know. Yeah. No, I mean, it was definitely one of my, like, top 15 or so. You need to watch March Comes In Like Lion.
I watched the first season. I didn't watch the second season.
Oh, okay. That's more than I expected. Well, the second season is even better.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
Have you watched all of the Monogatari series?
Nope, I've only watched the very first season of Monogatari, the Bakemonogatari one.
Yeah, no, watch more of that too. Especially the Kizu Monogatari films, which you can watch at any time now. And yeah, the Owari Monogatari series that kind of wraps it all up. I feel like I wish I kept up with Monogatari because there's just so much of it now. Yeah, true.
And there is conflicting information on the order that I should watch it in. And I think if I did, I'd just do it chronologically. Like in the order that it came out, not like actual chronologically.
Yes.
But that's just been stationary at the top of my list forever. And I still listen to a lot of the music from the first season because it was all so good. Up until a couple years ago, the Kimi no Shiranai Monogatari was my favorite ending theme ever. Mm-hmm. And it's still number 2. But
what took number 1?
Hectopascal from Bloom Into You. I just fucking love that song. It's so good.
I just quoted the first line of the Monogatari, Bakemonogatari ending today to someone.
Hey, that was like my "I'm driving to work" song for like a good year. I just put it on loop. It was that and the Little Busters opening. Those were like the only 2 songs I listened to for a whole year.
Interesting.
Yeah. Weebmobile. Yeah, Shaft is great though. And I look forward to essentially everything they do.
That company's a bad mother.
Which isn't much but still.
Yeah, this was one that I looked at to put on my list because I was like, oh, I know this name, but it didn't make mine surely because of my lack of experience watching stuff. Like the only one of these that I'm really familiar with, looking through their portfolio is Arakawa Under the Bridge, which I do really like. The surreal comedy that it was, and I really liked that show. I watched it with Emily, but yeah, a lot of these others like the Monogatari stuff, Nisekoi, etc., etc. I know the names, but not the actual shows or anything. But yeah, and also Fate Extra, based on the
Fate Extra
PSP
can
game.
fuck off. That was not a good show. That's the worst thing Shaft has
Damn.
done.
Well, that PSP game is also just hot garbage too.
There was one really good arc in the Fate Extra Last Encore anime, and then the rest of it was just not watchable. But overall, they're a good studio.
Well, everyone's
they're
gonna
not
have some
perfect.
stinkers.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I had them at my number 3 from my original 15 that I whittled down. Or yeah, number 13.
I thought
Sorry.
did you say number 3 at first? Because I was like,
I
wow,
did,
what
yeah.
happened?
No, number 3 out of the ones that did not make it. Sorry.
I was like, they went from number 3 to just not being on it. Period.
No. Number 13 overall. Cool. All right. Now we get into our number ones. I wish I had looked at Darius's list again because I could have made this transition as well because his number 2 is also my number 1, and that is Madhouse. Like he mentioned, they've done so many works over so many years and decades, and so many of them are so great that, two people can have 2 top 10 Madhouse anime lists and have no overlap.
Very true.
So, a lot of my stuff is newer, of course. But my favorites from them are Hunter x Hunter 2011, Monster, Death Note, all 3 seasons of Hajime no Ippo. Like I mentioned, the last one of them they co-produced with MAPPA, which both studios were formed by Masao Maruyama. They did the first season of One Punch Man. That's up there for me. And also The Girl Who Leapt Through Time and Summer Wars. Before Hosoda formed his own studio, he was working at Madhouse. So yeah, a lot of the same stuff Darius said. They've brought us so many of the greatest anime films and TV series across generations. They've spanned wide ranges of genre, style, technology. They've always established themselves as the marquee studio to give you either an adaptation or an original with just a pedigree that you can be excited about. So they've done, their classic cell animation, their modern digital work. They've always exemplified the finest execution of any given aesthetic throughout that history. A lot of their iconic classics are in the past, a lot of the ones Darius mentioned, and lots others that neither of us have mentioned. They've just done so much. But I still love their current aesthetic. They have just such strong line art, rich color design, beautifully fluid animation for every new production that they bring out, even today. So always love to see those. I think, a Madhouse show in any given season or movie still stands above most of the rest as some of the best looking, best produced work out there. The One Punch Man, I mentioned that first season, I loved the manga going into it, and it has such beautiful, intricately detailed artwork. It seems like it would be impossible to make it anywhere as good as it was. And I was excited about Madhouse doing it. They are a studio that they're not like KyoAni. They don't have everyone on staff, but they always gather together the best talent they can. And I think Madhouse really, or One Punch Man really exemplifies that more than anything. They want to ensure that their output is as incredible as possible, as much as possible. But One Punch Man was kind of like, the pinnacle of that because, yeah, they had these incredible standards to try to live up to from the manga. It even has like literal animation sequences in the pages. So yeah, that really like throws down the gauntlet for any team that attempts to adapt it because it even those sequences, they still have the same level of detail as the regular artwork, which you just can't do 24 frames a second. So what did they do? They're Madhouse, so they got all the best animators in the business to even enhance the level of quality that the manga has. I mentioned Yutaka Nakamoto before. He's a full-time employee of Bones. So, of course, he worked on One Punch Man, and Madhouse got him to take some time and work under a pseudonym. And he churned out some of his best work, which is, already at the top of the industry for everything that he puts out. Arifumi Imai, similar. I don't think he's employed by WIT, but he's been kind of their star animator and animation director for pretty much their entire existence, which has been a decade now. And they got him. They got probably his best work as well, even above all the stuff that he's done at WIT, which has been absolutely exceptional and really what puts him so high on my list. He did even better work in One Punch Man. And so I think that season of One Punch Man is probably the best animated single core of television ever produced. I think, Violet Evergarden might be the best looking. In terms of pure animation, I think One Punch Man is just the best 12 episodes that you can see. And I mentioned Toei with One Piece. It's very impressive that One Piece looks as good as it does, as often as it does now. But even that's nothing compared to Hunter x Hunter, because it kept up just an unbelievable level of quality that never faltered. The series ran 3 years, every single week for 3 years, no breaks, and it never diminished in quality. It just got better as it went along. It lost its primary sponsor. It lost its very favorable time slot that lots of eyes were on, because Madhouse refused to compromise and censor any of the content. And you know what? It just got better. They should have been making way less money, but it just got better and better. They should have been burnt out. It'd been running for years without a break, but quality just kept going up. And it's been, this is another thing that my, that same friend pointed out today in a tweet that someone did. It's been as long now between the first Hunter x Hunter anime and Madhouse's remake as it has since the remake. So it's been 12 years since that, and it was 12 years since the 99 series when the 2011 series started. And that 99 series, a lot of things changed dramatically in the mid-2000s with the shift to digital and everything. But man, that looked aged as hell by 2011. And the 2011 series looks better than most things airing on TV, and it kept that up for 3 years. I've mentioned that's my third favorite anime of all time. It's my ideal shonen adaptation that I wish every long-running series could receive. If One Piece ended ever, and they went back and adapted it in maybe a year on, a year off, for however long it took, with the pacing that Hunter x Hunter had, that would be so incredible. And yeah, Hunter x Hunter also stands out as the greatest mystery in the anime industry to me, because I literally don't understand how such an insane production was possible. So yeah, literally a madhouse.
Yeah, Madhouse, they were either my number 11 or number 12. Because they've done 2 shows that I'd probably put in my top 20 of all time. I know one of them is in my top 10. But they've also put out a lot that I've hated, and I feel like it's not in part to them. It's not their fault. It's just the source material they were working with. I guess just wasn't good. And I guess that kind of left a sour taste of inconsistency in my mouth, even if it wasn't entirely their fault. But when they make things I like, I tend to really like them. I still think A Place Further Than the Universe is arguably one of the best shows of the 2010s. I think Beck is the best music anime that will ever exist. And I think Sunny Boy is one of the most unique shows that will ever exist. So they do a lot of cool stuff, and I appreciate them and all 6 million of their anime.
What Madhouse shows do you hate?
I hate Photo Kano. Let me go down the list again. Photokano is bad. High School of the Dead is bad. Chaos Head is probably the worst anime that has ever happened. The worst full-length anime that has ever happened. I will clarify. Oh, they made Monster. I didn't know that. I guess that makes sense,
Yeah,
though.
I listed that as my second favorite of their works.
I was probably going down this list of 8 million anime while that was happening.
Yeah.
I think the ones that I mentioned are probably the worst, but there have been a few
Yeah.
others that I've watched and they have been okay. Boogie Pop was one of those, I guess, one of the okay. And I think Tactopy was extremely uninspired, but it looked really nice. So
Yes.
that was cool.
And that was one, like Hajime no Ippo Rising, that was a production with Mappa as well. Again, same founder, so they've done a lot of stuff together. And by a lot of stuff, I mean at least two things. But
They're two
that
very
was
big things, though.
yes, that was a show where these two studios actually alternated on each episode, and you could really tell. I think it was the odd numbered episodes Madhouse had, and all the odd numbered episodes looked way better than the Mappa episodes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
looking down through the list, when I was making mine, I had similar feelings to you as well, DJ, because I was like, oh, well, there's Death Prey, which I really, really liked. Oh, but there's all the Marvel anime, which is just awful.
Sunday Without God was another one too, where it's I came into that show and I was like, this is the thing I'm going to really like. But then I watched it and it was weird and not in a good way, I guess.
Yeah, that's what made it hard to put it. That's what made it hard to put on my list, not only because of that, but I was like, there's just so many. You could easily say I hate Madhouse if you just cherry picked all the bad stuff as much as you could say they're the best of all time because of they just have so much that
they're all over the place.
Yeah, and
they're
it's
not like Kestrel said, you can't just look at them and be like, oh, this is Madhouse.
Exactly.
They're varied and they pull from a lot of different places. They don't need a style because they're not that type of studio, but they are incredibly capable of making some of the best things in the market.
Yeah, I think, that's true for all of these massive studios that are working on countless productions simultaneously. They can't help but have a great percentage of terrible works. I think of those, Madhouse has the highest percentage of really incredible work, in my opinion. So, yeah, that's what earns the spot for me. And like I mentioned, a few of their productions are just absolutely mind blowing, and they've jump started the careers of so many just incredible creators. Like we said, Hosoda, Cain. These are all creators that worked exclusively at Madhouse, and then Hosoda eventually branched off to his own studio. But yeah, very, very important studio in the history of anime.
All right. We ready for my number one?
Go for it.
Yeah.
All right. I've talked about it a million times in the past. And if you are an avid listener of the podcast, you probably know my favorite studio is PA Works. I fucking love PA Works, and I love almost everything that they've ever done. And a lot of that is in part to Mario Okada, who works with them all the time. But as a whole, I just think that they are a really interesting studio and that they're always putting out these really just contained small stories that don't need to expand or anything, but hey, here's 13 or 26 episodes of just one story and you could focus on that and then we'll do something entirely different. They have a lot of shows that focus on just a working environment or a specific industry that not a lot of people really pay attention to, whether it be restaurants or anime itself. And I feel like when Mario Okada is behind the scenes writing shit over there, who's arguably my favorite writer out there, the shit that they can do with coming of age stories, like with Nagio no Asukara, it's just on another level. I think that they do water better than any other studio and colors better than any other studio. And I feel like the water thing's a little weird to say, but just visual effects, they really shine with background art and just color palettes in general. You're going to get a lot of really vibrant bright shit, and it looks very modern. It's nothing at all like old anime looked. Like you can tell it's just like, oh, this is like 300% digital art. And I like that aesthetic. I like how they manage their character designs. I like everything about PA Works, and that's why they're another studio where I will watch virtually everything they do, except for your boy Kong Ming, which I neglected to watch for some reason.
Arguably their best work.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard nothing but good things about it. I don't know if I'd call it their best work when Shirobako exists, which is another top 10 all time for me. But they're not without flaw because they made Glass Lip, and I will never forgive them for that. And then you've got shit fucking like Angel Beats too. Like everybody likes Angel Beats. Who doesn't like Angel Beats? PA Works did that, and they're so capable, and I feel like they're so underrated because they work primarily in a genre that most people don't care about. But it's the genre I care most about, and so I will champion them forever. And I will be very tempted to stalk their headquarters when I am in Japan in November.
Yeah, the interesting thing about PA Works, I think they're probably the only major studio that has never made anything that I would even consider putting on my top 100 anime.
Interesting.
Yeah. So they've never wowed me. They're almost always like consistent, high quality, but never really done it for me.
That's strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've done I've seen probably at least 7 shows that would make my top 100, I think. But I'm very partial to the PA Works aesthetic. They're another studio that most of the time you're going to be able to recognize that it's them. This season, I feel like they have an exception to that in Skip and Loafer. But most of the time, you're going to get the same style of character designs, the same rainbows, and the same deep blue water. And if somebody is running and yelling, it might be PA Works a lot.
That's just Okada.
Great
Yeah,
studio.
and
I'm probably the only person out of all of our lists combined that put them here, but they're number 1 for me. So
I think that's true.
Hell yeah.
Let me check.
Hey, there's something to be said about animating water. It's just like water physics in video games. It's always something people point out when it's good because
Who's next?
It can be real bad.
Yeah. Let's do Darius next.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Woo! Thank goodness. I'm sorry. After tonight, I'm just like I'm gonna be scared every time. But my number one favorite studio is one that I apparently was watching before I realized I was an anime fan, and I'll explain that in a second. But if you've ever seen some of my writings, you will know that my favorite director ever is a man named Osamu Dezaki, and he used to work with Tezuka stuff. He used to work on a lot of work over his time, and he would primarily work with a studio called TMS Entertainment, or one point known as Tokyo Movie Shinsha. And they've done he basically sometimes they also used to work a lot with Madhouse, some of their earlier works, um, and they kind of teamed up. But TMS, like I said, they worked with Dezaki, so stuff like Space Adventure Cobra, Go-Go 13, The Professional, um, Rose of Versailles, Aim for the Ace, classic girls tennis anime. Tomorrow's Joe, one of the most excuse me, iconic sports anime you'll ever find. And the thing is, like I said, they were. I was a fan of their work, and I did not realize it. And that when in the '80s, when more and more anime companies were taking up the duties of doing cartoons for U.S. works, you kind of notice them primarily at the forefront. Stuff like the Bionic Six, Visionaries, Adventures of the Galaxy Rangers, and my personal favorite Saturday morning cartoon ever that Dezaki himself did called Mighty Orbots. Excuse me. They were also the first to animate stuff like Lupin the Third. That was some of their earlier work. Also, Cat's Eye, a group of female thieves. In fact, they recently had this year a movie where Lupin meets the Cat's Eye team, and it's a goofball film. It's pretty cool. But they have touched my life. Even just a little kid watching cartoons until now. They have probably been involved in so many incredible works. Um, and I just, yeah, absolutely love what these guys have been doing, and for as long as they've managed to do it, they managed to keep themselves very relevant. Sometimes they would even work on something like maybe, say, Batman the animated series. I'm pretty sure they did a couple episodes of that. Stuff like that. I mean, yeah, these guys. This has been my favorite animation company for a very, very long time. And whenever Discotech usually pops up one of their works up for sale, I'm usually one of the first to grab it. Like, here you go. So in fact, I had that Aim for the Ace movie just recently came out. It's like mine. It's like crack to me. So yeah, I'm a gigantic fan of Tokyo Movie Shinsha. So yeah, they're definitely my number one pick. Oh
Nice.
man.
Yeah, TMS is one of those old giants,
Yeah.
especially because they did Lupin Part 2,
Mhm.
I believe. I mean,
Yeah.
they did Part
They did
1
all of
Yeah.
Lupin.
too?
Yeah.
Oh, they've been doing this for
Every single Lupin animation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're always involved.
Then Part 2 was the first Lupin thing I ever watched when it was on Adult Swim with the dub, and that's what got me into this Lupin in general was Part 2. 'Cause it's at least in my mind that like the epitome of the Lupin character. I know that it changes kind of like how Sherlock does, but Part 2 Lupin is my favorite.
Oh, I forgot to mention Sherlock Hound. Oh, jeez. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah, I did just watch that on Discotech's Blu-ray.
Yeah, it's wonderful stuff. Oh man, early Miyazaki with them.
Yeah, I was gonna say all of Miyazaki.
Yeah, Sherlock Hound was Miyazaki, wasn't it? I meant to bring it up in the Ghibli thing.
Yeah, he was working for them.
I forgot to.
He worked on the first several episodes of the show before departing. But yeah, he was with them for a minute.
Yeah, I mean, obviously his first film is a Lupin film at TMS, of course. His first directorial work, period, was co-directing the Lupin Part 1 TV series with Takahata after the original director was fired. Also at TMS, of course. So yeah, his career is kind of, Toei, then TMS, then who did Conan? Was that Nippon Animation? I can't remember. But yeah, those were the two studios that he worked at most frequently before forming Ghibli.
Did he work on like Heidi?
Yes.
I think
he wasn't like a director.
I think that was more Takahata that worked on Heidi.
Yeah.
Than it was.
Yeah. Takahata directed it, but like a lot of Takahata's directorial works before Miyazaki really became a director, he worked with him on them.
But yeah, they got a juggernaut with Detective Conan here currently, and that's never going to stop. Just like One Piece and everything. Yeah, that thing is never going to stop. Oh man. Oh yeah, Star of the Giants. Yes, this is like I think that was labeled the best anime at one point ever, in a classic rating of greatest animes ever. Japan actually voted that the best one ever. Oh wow. Ulysses 31, I forgot to mention that. I used to like that as a kid. Oh man. Sorry. Going back to my childhood. Sorry about that.
Darius is experiencing deep nostalgia.
It was a fun childhood. 80s had great cartoons, man. Ah, gosh. Yeah, I'm sorry. Y'all go ahead and everything. I cede my time to one of you greats.
All right, Cain, all that's left is your number one.
Cool. Saving the best for last, apparently. And that is Sunrise. I did put also Studio One if needed, because I wasn't sure if I would get shit on for picking Sunrise, even though there's a zillion Sunrises.
Right.
So I did specify it to Studio One, which is the great grandpappy out of all of them anyway, the original in the 70s. And this is mainly because of Gundam. Like, I wish I could say that there was a deeper meaning behind it, but I just love Gundam so goddamn much. And it's one of my favorite anime like properties. Even when it's weird and bad, I still have a fun time watching it because of how bad it is. I do have a soft spot for the original Mobile Suit Gundam, the 1979 one, both the TV show and the movies. I need to watch Kukuru's Island. I haven't seen that yet. That's on the list. What'd you say? Sorry.
It is on Crunchyroll now.
Yeah, I'd seen that, so that gives me an avenue to watch it. But yeah, just Gundam is just it's one of the biggest properties, period, of all anime. It's got products out the wazoo, TV shows, video games, all sorts of stuff. And some of my more favorite things about Studio One in particular is I really enjoy their, and I'm gonna use what Square Enix does with their video games in a way, but their version essentially of HD 2D, which is essentially they keep the retro styling of their aesthetics now, like in the Char series, the Hathaway, Unicorn to some extent, though that's not bringing old into new, but they just melded the character and feel of Amuro and Char and all those folks and Bright and brought them into a modern anime stage, so to speak. And it feels like they haven't dropped a beat. It's such a great blend of keeping the original character while updating the visuals and updating the way people look and maintaining some form of realism in their character proportions and things. And that's what I really, really like. And I think Sunrise does some of the best CGI work for the mobile suits and the mechanical portions. Which from Mercury, which is not Studio One, but it is a Sunrise thing. I think the mobile suit action looks great in that. Same with Thunderbolt and Unicorn, which utilize CG, and that is Studio One. And I think Gundam Thunderbolt is probably my second favorite of the Studio One productions, mainly because I think it has just this incredible blend of the horrors of war coupled with chaotic freeform jazz as its soundtrack that just makes what you're watching feel so much more uncomfortable and jarring. Since I know a lot of properties like to do like horrors of war stuff, and then they may do like these bombastic big orchestral type things, which Gundam has done before. Unicorn has one of my favorite openings of all time, and it's also very big and orchestral. But just Thunderbolt being so just fraught with tension and character drama, and seeing all of these individual people having like real problems, not just in the war, but also because of the war in their personal lives or their families' histories. It's some of Sunrise Studio One's like pinnacle stuff, and they've always been about like how war is a terrible thing. But I think Thunderbolt is kind of this fantastic distillation of that really just punches you in the face. But yeah, it's Sunrise, and I know they've done more than Gundam, but like I said, it's mainly because Gundam is just such an incredible like part of my anime watching life. And I mean, like, I have the Mobile Suit Gundam soundtrack on vinyl. It's the only anime soundtrack sans Cowboy Bebop that I bought, so that's 2.
Sunrise.
And I still listen to it. I still put it on, especially for like Gallant Char and the original like funk disco theme song from Mobile Suit Gundam is so great. But yeah, I can't get enough of Sunrise stuff. They have done me dirty at a couple conventions with their just bullshit panels, but their actual productions for anime are always really good, or at the very least fun to watch because of how bad they are. Like that one terrible CG MS Igloo is so bad it's good in my eyes. Though I think it does have a really good scene where a tank fights a Zaku, which I thought was a lot of fun when my friends and I watched it. But Yep, Sunrise is my number 1.
Yeah, if we were going off of who does the best convention panels, Trigger would definitely be number 1.
They're pretty goofy.
Great panels, lots of fun.
I
Cool.
believe. Sunrise, no fun at all.
All right. Those were our top 10 studios of all time. As always, I like to make some aggregate lists from ours and other lists we get. So first I will aggregate the top 5s of everyone who submitted them, top 3s to 5s, I guess. So that will give us a solid top 10 with no ties. So let's see. We have, hold on one second. Sorry, I should have compiled this first. There we go. Okay. At number 10, we have A1 Pictures with 7 points. Of course, number 1 gets 5 points, so on. We have at number 9 Toei Animation with 7 points, but one of them is a number 1. At number 8, we have Production IG with 8 points, including one number 1. We have at number 7 AIC with 9 points, including a number 1. Number 6 is Sunrise, 11 points. Number 5, Trigger, 14 points. Number 4, Kyoto Animation, 15 points. Oh, sorry, Trigger and KyoAni both had one number 1. And number 3 is Bones with 23 points, 2 number 1s. Number 2, Gynax, 30 points, 3 number 1s. And number 1, Madhouse, 35 points, 5 number 1s.
Jeez.
Yeah.
2 of mine made the top 10. I'll take it.
Yeah, I don't know if it was when you couldn't hear us that I said this, but you are in fact the only person we got PA Works from anywhere on it.
Yeah, I figured.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. All right, and now for the aggregate of our 4 lists of top 10s, we can do a top 5 with no ties. So our number 5 is Trigger with 15 points. Number 4 is Kyoto Animation with 17 points. Number 3, Sunrise with 18 points. Obviously, one number 1, you just heard it. Number 2, Studio Ghibli, 22 points. And number 1, again, Madhouse, 23 points, including my number 1. So, yeah, I guess whether you are us collectively or the people who submitted lists collectively, I am objectively right by putting Madhouse at number 1. Everyone agrees.
Interesting way of thinking. Well, but yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, they've been around so long, it's not even funny.
Yeah, it's true. It's not a fair contest, but yeah, lots of good variety even within the limited pool that we all have to choose from. So, cool. That was good to go over. Thank you, Cain, for suggesting that we do a ranking episode. I never would have imagined.
I can't remember the other one I was thinking about.
Character designers?
Oh, yeah, because I was like, I need to first figure out
What that means.
what that means. Yep.
It's
I
true.
know shows that have characters that I really enjoy looking at. So that's where I was basing that off of.
Right. Yeah.
Then, yeah, I'm sure that definition gets murky really quickly.
Exactly. Yeah. Like studios for a very different reason because, yeah, most anime is adapted from something else. Most of those source materials already had character designs. So it's all about, how much do you credit the original designer versus the adaptive designer. And even originals, like Code Geass, Clamp did original character designs and then they were adapted. So yeah, definitely murky in different ways. Maybe we'll still hash it out and do that sometime in the future. But glad we did this one because it has been, I think, over half a decade since we just did like a ranking episode with no reason, other than like top of the year, top of the decade, top of all time for episode 100, like just a ranking episode of favorite creators or something like that. It's been a very long time, so glad that we got to do another one.
Yay!
Yeah, so thanks for joining, everyone. Thanks for listening. Tell your friends. Find us anywhere you find podcasts. Subscribe, rate, and review. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Alexa, Amazon, wherever. Go find us. We're on fandompost.com. We're on social media, Twitter and Facebook, at Fandom Post Radio. Follow us there, share our stuff, get in contact with us. If you didn't contribute to this episode, you can still let us know what your favorite studios are, and, we'd love to hear them, can read them in a future episode if you do. So, yeah, find us there. If you need to get in contact with us via email, you can find us at fandompostradio@gmail.com. And if you want to find me on Twitter, I'm at Full Metal Kyoma. I probably haven't posted anything of note, but yeah.
I'm on Twitter at DJ No Style. My video game is lessonslovegame.com.
But you, Darius?
Oh, me? Where the heck am I on Twitter? Oh, yeah. Well, let's see. I'm on there theoretically at dwashington999 at Twitter. At Twitter. I'm sorry. At dwashington999. Yay! I'm actually remembering that. And
I don't think you needed to mention that you were old before. I think everyone got the message.
Yes, I'm probably gonna keel over at some convention. Nice knowing y'all in advance, by the way. You hear this? And also you'll find me on Facebook half the time talking us too with Darius Washington 999. And yeah, you'll probably also find me at MomoCon. I do a lot of work for them, and I'm kind of going crazy getting stuff done because that's in like 2 weeks. So yeah, just come up, say hi, and we can talk cartoons. Yes, I call anime cartoons. Yeah.
It is, in fact, animation. So yeah, find Darius at Theoretical Twitter, also known as @Twitter. And yeah, we still have exclusive rights to Cain's image for the next 95 years, so we're gonna abuse that as much as possible.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks for coming. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time. Maybe we'll talk about the manga app wars that have been going on and all the drama around that. Lots of fun stuff going on to talk about. I'll be at Anime Central next week if you're going to be there. Hopefully I'll get to see Brandon since it's his hometown. But until the next time we release an episode, we will
take care. Oh, we miss you, Kate.
Peace out.
Peace. Yeah, I need to look into this whole manga app thing.
Oh God.
Is it for real bad, or is it just very niche bad?
We'll talk about it, hopefully, unless we don't get around to it and just record another episode about the spring season. But the Cain manga,
right? Sorry.
127. Yes. The Cain manga app is legitimately the worst thing. And the phenomenal thing, which, yeah, I hope we get to talk about this at some point, even if it's just a news story, we will. But Cain Manga announced that they were gonna, or Kodansha announced that they were gonna have this app, Cain Manga, a few months ago, and they've been hyping it up. And then the day before its release date, Viz was like, hey, we've got a brand new app. Here it is right here. It's got all of our stuff that's not on Shonen Jump. It's also $1.99 a month. It's also, all the newest chapters for free all the time. And then the next day, Kodansha launched Cain Manga, without any fanfare, and everyone just fucking ripped it apart for being this horrible fucking gotcha nightmare. Yeah, that's what's going on.
Wow, so Viz undercut them in almost every way imaginable.
Yes, it was fantastic.